All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So, Laurent, I'm just going to ask you questions if you want to share. You don't got to give
Yeah,
away like the top trade secrets
I'll
because
give away all my secrets right here.
it was it was really just I was like a student in class watching Laurent walk up to the vendors and then just the ideas that would pop off in his head as he was walking by vendors or talking to them for potential private label products was awesome. So just tell us a little bit, if you would, about the show that we were going to, and like who they kind of target and.
Yeah, so there are actually two shows, Off Price and Magic. Magic is primarily for apparel and footwear, and I would classify it really as two sections. One, wholesale, which is a bigger part of the show. Wholesale brands, a lot of small brands, and some of the biggest brands from Calvin Klein, are there, and then a lot of small brand clothing and shoe companies that sell well, but we've never heard of. Especially, I mean, clothing and shoes are a lot of brands. So those are wholesale opportunities there, and that's really, I think, the main focus of the show. And there are sellers like, us, I would say small time, Amazon sellers there. And then there's buyers from, Nordstrom and Macy's and Amazon walking through the show, talking to their existing relationships and looking for new products. Some brands are so exclusive, like Skechers had a big booth there. You can't get in unless you have an appointment. You can't even walk around their booth and stuff. They had like huge section of the show, of a floor. They had a really, really big booth. And then the other part of the show, which is interesting, was called Sourcing at Magic. They had two separate locations as part of the convention center. One was mostly for apparel type products, so anything from running shorts and fitness and baby onesies and robes and blankets and items like that, from vendors from all over the world, from China, from India, Pakistan, Turkey. There was even a made in U.S. section of like two vendors that were there. And then there's a footwear section also with vendors. So those are all private label opportunities, which is pretty cool because you can, it's not often that in this country you can meet vendors from China, talk to them, and have that relationship face to face, see the products, sample them, and see that. So that was Magic. And then Off Price is a separate show that's usually always run at the same time as Magic. And there is sort of two kinds of vendors there. So it's called Off Price because it's a lot of closeout type items that are branded. So you could go in there and buy Pokemon stuff for Q4. There are a lot of clothing and shoes there, but also, other items like other categories, like some toys. And then there are smaller vendors, smaller brands that probably don't want to pay to go to the Magic show because it's more expensive, that you can also buy direct from in that show.
Awesome. So let's just share a little bit why we think it's a good idea. If you're a seller, and whether you're part-time, hoping to go full-time, or if you're full-time, it's definitely a good idea to reach out and try to add, either private label or wholesale items to your inventory. And a perfect reason for that is, if you're selling right now, that a couple of days ago, there was like a lot of hoopla about Adidas restricting a lot of brands. And it seems that Amazon is definitely moving in that direction where they're starting to consolidate more, where it's starting to possibly be harder to sell name brand items that you may be purchasing either OA or RA. Now, it's not going to be like a drop off the cliff where all of a sudden all the brands, right, are going to be restricted. But there definitely is a movement toward some brands, right, you not being able to sell. And so by going to a show like this and connecting with wholesalers and distributors, most likely, and this is probably a question you always want to ask when you connect with those distributors, they're going to be able to provide you with sanitized invoices, which are going to hold up when you're selling on Amazon. And so, just by adding this type of inventory, this is, wouldn't you say, Laurent, that, if you're like a full-time seller and you want to scale up, like this is the way to do it, whether you're at the sourcing show that we went to, or, you're connecting with these wholesalers where you can order large quantity.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like Andy said with some of the restrictions coming on board. I mean, I think I do OA and I do Amazon flips and I do OA and I do shoes that I buy OA. But I like the fact that I have a diversified inventory where if the shoe dropped tomorrow and I couldn't do OA, I don't have all my eggs in one basket in terms of one way of sourcing, or all my eggs concentrated in a brand too much. You know, I wouldn't want to have more than 10% of my inventory, 5% of my inventory in Nike or Adidas or any brand really for that matter, unless I'm buying it wholesale or private label, where Amazon would, if that brand did get restricted and Amazon said, you know, you need wholesale invoices, I can have a wholesale invoice direct from the brand that would hold up to me being allowed to sell that brand. Now, I don't think Adidas is going to sell to me, so that's not who I'm approaching. So I don't think a lot of my wholesale stuff that I'm buying is going to get restricted because they're, you know, it's not some of the biggest brands in the world or brands that are more counterfeit. But I think having a diversified source of products is smart. And if you want to scale up, yeah, if you're doing private label, you have a good product, you know, you order a few hundred units and it works, then next time you order 500 units and it's just easier to source once it works. Same with, you know, with wholesale. So whether you go to, you know, a baby trade show or toy trade show or any industry that you are interested in or want to sell it, I think it's a good idea to, you know, and a lot of people ask, well, how do you get into wholesale? Go to trade shows, because there's nothing easier than getting into wholesale than going to a trade show. And, you know, and I did some pre-work. I had a VA do some pre-work for me for the trade show. So it's a good idea to look at the, one, even if you don't go to a trade show, I mean, you can look at the exhibitors, right, on these websites. It's a good start. And you can reach out. But once you have a relationship and you meet face-to-face and you have an email, it's much easier. But look up the vendors beforehand. See which are on Amazon, which are already selling well, and maybe those are the ones you want to try to approach first and build a relationship. And, you know, one tip, here's my secret here, we're revealing, you know, there are a lot of brands that will sell to you selling on Amazon, and a lot that say, no, we want you to have a brick and mortar store. We don't want you to sell on Amazon. But a lot of those brands have closeout merchandise, stuff they want to get rid of, and they don't care who they sell it to. They just want to get rid of that. There's no MAP pricing. They don't care if you sell it for $1 on Amazon and ruin their brand because it's closeout merchandise. So, you know, even if you're talking to brands that are not interested in selling to you, ask them about closeouts. 'Cause that happened to us at the show. And, you know, they're like, well, we're not taking any new sellers on Amazon. And, you know, I'll say, well, do you have a closeout list? And start talking to them. And I had one vendor already emailed me that list from the show. So there are definitely ways to go to trade shows and get new accounts and scale your business.
Yeah, so that was awesome. A lot of, like you said, at the wholesale show, which was probably the bigger part of the show, a lot of those folks, especially when you're dealing with shoes, they want you to have a brick and mortar store. And so they're not going to sell to you if you just sell on Amazon. But LeRon said his last question would always be, you know, do you have any closeout lists or whatever? And almost every single one of them said yes. And you know, they would sell that no problem, which I thought was genius.
And you know, I mean, one vendor, I you know, what I would do walking the show is kind of like before I approach a brand, some I know, some I don't know, I just do a search for the brand on Amazon. Suddenly I'll see like, okay, a shoe with 30 reviews, 50 reviews, 20 reviews. So they kind of look like they're good sellers. And I look at the rank. One shoe was like 6,000 rank. And I asked specifically about that shoe. And the vendor said to me, oh, yeah, that's a closeout item. And I'm like, great. It's on Amazon ranking well. That style, it's not like a fad style that's going to sell now or 2 years from now. I don't care that it's a closeout, and I'm getting a better price on it. And a lot of times, if Amazon did have it, they either no longer have it because it's a closeout, or they have limited stock, like 5 pairs left, 4 pairs left, where I don't care and I know they're not going to get any more. And what I like to look for now, as I'm going to go through some of these lists, is I like to look for an opportunity where I can buy out a specific size or a specific style. You know, if they have 100 pairs, I want to buy, you know, I'll say to Andy, let's buy out those 100 pairs, because now I know it's not going to somebody else, and I'm not going to have a, you know, a possible chance for a race to the bottom, you know, on that. So, you know, there's opportunities like that at, I'm sure, every trade show. Most brands and companies they overproduce, or a major, you know, I bought some shoes in the past where Kohl's canceled an order in the last minute, and then it became a closeout item because Kohl's canceled their order and they wanted to get rid of it. So there are for sure opportunities like that probably at every trade show.
Awesome. So we talked about it a little earlier. If you're just joining us, we are talking about the trade show Magic that we just went to in Las Vegas. I got in last night at about 10 o'clock. Ron got in yesterday around 6 o'clock, so I'm still a little jet lagged. But it was a very interesting show. It's the first time I've been to it. It was huge. And there were really two sections of the show that we were at the Magic show that we went to. One was a sourcing section that was filled with primarily Chinese, but really every country was represented. So, there was Dominican Republic manufacturers there. There was Taiwan manufacturers there, every country. And so it was interesting for me because that I really love private labeling. That's like a big part of my business. So we actually spent most of our time in the sourcing section. And it was cool because there's a big fair in China. It's called the Canton Fair. It happens twice a year. It's the biggest fair in the world. And I haven't been able to make it over there yet. But it was almost like this little section, and this was probably like 2% compared to the size of what it is in China. But it was like you're at the Canton Fair. And so you're talking direct to the manufacturers, who have flown in from China. And it was interesting because I think they're just kind of finding out about the trade shows in America, because probably about 25% of the booths that we went to, they spoke very little English. And so it was almost like you were in China, right, talking to a manufacturer. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and actually some hired translators, which was, smart for them to do that. But what I noticed is, I have a private label product right now that I'm debating whether or not I should really reorder, because the profit margins are kind of low on it. It doesn't sell super fast, and the margins are low. And every time I try to raise the price on Amazon, sales really slow down. So past a certain point, it doesn't sell well. And so I wasn't going to reorder it, but I saw a booth that sold a very, similar type of product. And so I asked them, so I'm paying about $6.50 for the product right now. By the time I get it here, it's light. So by the time I get it here, it's like $7.30. And then I can sell it for $17.99. That's like the max price. The margin's not that great on it. And so I spoke to a vendor there and I showed them the item, and they told me they can make it for $4.50. So I could probably get that down to like $5.30, $5.40. And so the prices that you can get by talking to some of these vendors are better, I think, than what you'll find with Alibaba. Alibaba, you don't know if you're dealing with a trading company that's, just a middleman, or the factory directly. And that's fine. That's the convenience of using Alibaba and having somebody that speaks, like a staff that speaks English and, can do everything for you. But when you meet with some of these factories, they can get you better prices. Another item I just ordered from China, I paid $6 for. Factory gave me a price of like $4.30. So you can definitely start to source products at a lower price point, and then that's a huge advantage over your competition that is going to Alibaba, and you can just either price better than them or make better margins to get to get your sales rank up. It's a good opportunity to meet face to face. And the other thing is that you get new product ideas that, you maybe weren't looking for that item or category, but you walk around and you're seeing the products. It's different than just going to Alibaba and searching for stuff, because you're getting new ideas. You're getting ideas of bundles and just opportunities of, what to put together. There is an item that Andy and I saw. It doesn't exist, on Amazon, from a company in India. Just that there are really none of them on Amazon. So you have to sort of gauge if it'll sell well or not, but you can sort of be first to market with something also. So I really like the sourcing section if you want to get into PL. You want to get better pricing than Alibaba, and you don't want to go to China. I think it's a great opportunity, and I'm looking forward to doing the same thing next time I go to ASD, because there's also a sourcing section there. And I bet a lot of people that are watching this have been to ASD and maybe didn't really take a lot of time to go to the sourcing section. I know most Amazon sellers I know are going to toys, they're going to closeout section, home and kitchen sections of ASD, but they're not really pursuing that sourcing section at ASD. And you're dealing direct there with somebody you could talk to and know, you can feel and see the product. So to me, that's a big advantage. Andy and I found a good packaging source, right? Probably could talk a little bit about that, because I know it's been hard for you to find.
Yeah, so it was definitely worth the trip for me. I've had a difficult time finding a good packaging company where I feel really comfortable with relationship wise. And we found an awesome one, talked to him for a little bit. He actually works out of San Diego, but his factory is in China, which is great because when you're dealing with Chinese manufacturers, a lot of times the time difference is difficult because they're just coming to work, like right when I'm ready to go to bed. And so being able to have someone in the USA to talk or run things through is phenomenal. And, packaging is when it comes to private label, it really sets you apart, as well as that's like something you want to really work on, because that way people can't jump on your listing, right? If you have a unique design package. So, talking to the guy, like it was a nice cardboard package, phenomenal design, just like something, you would find at a Target or whatever. And it's like 20 cents per package, which, adding that to your product, it adds a lot of value.
And, it's interesting because when we asked them about the price, and it was like 29 cents, and they're like, oh, it's 29 cents. And Andy and I think like, wow, it's amazing. And then the woman goes, and the reason that's the price is because it has raised printing on it. It was like too expensive at 29 cents. And she's trying to justify to us why they have that price, but they'll work directly with your supplier and work out the packaging for it. And that's, talking also about brand registry, you need to have packaging with your logo on it also. So it's also helpful in terms of getting approved for brand registry. So not even just about products, but just finding different sources of packaging where you could differentiate your product in terms of private label.
Yep, definitely. So Craig, I see your question. Did you find their minimums to be high? Some of them were 500, some of them were 1,000. But what I found, even, just negotiating with manufacturers I meet through the internet, like on Alibaba, if you're willing to be consistent and, work with them for like a week or 2 weeks, basically what I'll do is I'll just keep coming back in an email and say, hey, I really want to work with you, for this first order. Can we do a cooperation of 300 units? And if I do that without fail, it's work for me, for like 2 weeks straight and just be persistent, usually for that first order, they will drop the MOQ.
Yeah. And I mean, I can tell you right now, I got an email today following up from a vendor. I got several emails. The wholesale vendors have not followed up yet so much, but the sourcing vendors have, which is interesting. But I got an email that said, the item that you showed me the picture of, though the quantity is really small, but as I told you in our booth, the fabric quantity will help us make small quantity fabric. So they're already justifying to me why they're willing to lower their MOQ. So, but most of it wasn't terrible, 300 to 1,000. I think you want to order, probably a few hundred units at least when you're starting out with the product, because you want to do some giveaways to get reviews, and you to rank it, sometimes you have to do some giveaways at a lower price or price point. So, and if it's going to be successful, then you want to have those units.
And I'll also add, there's, a couple different ways you can work around that. Is one, maybe like partner with somebody. So I partner with a lot of different people on products. And one of the reasons is for that very reason. If the MOQ is 1,000 and maybe it's a first product, I'm, not super sure on it, but so by partnering with someone, I only have to buy 500, they buy 500. And that to me has worked out really well. And I see that part of my business continuing to grow where I partner with other sellers.
Right. And, the other thing is, the more you order, the better your price is going to be, and it's going to help you compete too. So, you want to order an amount where they don't just charge you a lot more, because they have to, when they're making something, they have to buy raw materials at a certain minimum to make the product generally. So the more units you buy, the better price that you're gonna get. So sometimes, I'll even order a product initially, and I know maybe I'm paying a little bit more, but the second time I order, if I order more, I'm gonna renegotiate that price so I can, make the margin I really want to make.
So I forgot to mention, we were also with Steven Peterson, who again, to me, is just a tremendous negotiator and just knows the business. He's been an online seller for a long time. He has a great podcast. If you haven't checked out his podcast, you need to. It's called E-Commerce Momentum. If you go to iTunes, you can download it. I think he has like 120 some episodes right now where he's interviewed other successful Amazon sellers, and it's really a wealth of information. I often tell people when I first started selling, I listened to as many podcasts, which back then it was 3 years ago, there weren't a lot. And there were a number of them, every podcast I would listen to where it would help me build my business. So definitely check out his podcast, a great podcast, E-Commerce Momentum. He has a wealth of information as well, but he also draws out from a lot of good veteran Amazon sellers. So check him out. Had to give him a shout out.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you would think that walking a wholesale show or sourcing show with other sellers, that it's competition, but walking the show, suddenly Steven goes, well, I just looked up that brand over there. Like, they're on Amazon. Let's go talk to them, So there are definitely advantages of going to walking the show with like a few people that, you may want to partner on products with, because you'll uncover things that you probably would not have yourself, or somebody will negotiate a better price than maybe you would have. So it's nice to walk a show with, few people that, or 2 or 3 people that you can partner on products.
Yep.
Especially, you're pitching to a brand that now, instead of buying 100 of something or whatever, you're going to buy 300 or, more quantity, and you're getting a better price too.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, hey, you guys, we're trying to keep these shows a little shorter. Thanks so much for hanging out and joining us today. Check us out if you're not in the Facebook group yet. It's Amazing Freedom Amazon Sellers. Definitely join up there, and you can see some other great information, a lot of great posts. So we're going to wrap the show up. LeRon, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for showing me and teaching me the last 3 days too. I really appreciate it.
And he's too humble.
Yeah. So, all right, well, we'll let you guys get back to work, to sourcing, shipping, packing, labeling, whatever you're doing. LeRon right now has got a basement full of product that landed on his doorstep yesterday. And so he's got a lot of packing and shipping that he's got to do.
Yeah.
How are you? All right, so we'll see you guys. Take care. Have a great Wednesday.